Welcome, everybody, to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation's Live Better series. Happy New Year. I think this is the first time we've been back since the new year. I'm Rob Girth. I'm the Director of Digital Media here at the Foundation, and today we are doing Dr. Dan on, and it's called Lonely, Alone, or Just Different. And Dr. Dan and I are both looking for this to be a conversation, and not just a conversation between he and I, but for all of us to join in. So to achieve that, there's some technical details we got to cover. And for that, let me turn it over briefly to France, our operator.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, during this session, if you would like to ask a question, use the chat feature, which is located in your lower left-hand corner of your screen. You may also dial in if you have an audio question. All lines will be open and interactive, and you will be able to speak freely. The number you should be dialing is 1-800-768-5901. Also, this conference is being recorded today, Wednesday, January 15, 2014. I would now like to turn it back to Mr. Rob Girth. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And we really encourage you to call in. I mean, it makes for a wonderful hour when we're just so jam-packed with calls that we can't get to them all. It's just wonderful conversation. So please do it. Let me give you that number again. It's up in the chat for you, but it's 800-768-5901. So, Dan, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Rob. Happy New Year to you, too. You enjoy your holiday?
Thanks very much. A pleasure. So, been any cool places lately? I'm setting you up because I want you to talk a little bit about where you've been. Do you mind?
Yeah, no. Actually, where I was is the inspiration for the topic of today's chat. I was on a 5-day silent meditation retreat. And, you know, I jokingly say it's like I took my mind to a car wash, you know. The problem is whenever I come out of the car wash, it's always raining. But on a more serious note, you know, people think the silence is the problem. But the silence is not. I was telling Rob, you know, before we went on live here, that the silence is great because you realize how much energy it takes for this chit-chat and small talk when what you're really looking for is connection with people. I mean, we're hardwired for that. You know, our brains are social organs. So what we ache for is connection, and we do it through small talk, but it doesn't get us there. And what we found in this retreat is you can do it through silence. You don't have to use words. Just two humans, two kindred spirits sharing an experience. We weren't even allowed to have eye contact with each other. And yet, we felt connected. And the meditation was, I mean, what put a frame around all this and gave it context. So there were times there where I was the only guy in the wheelchair, where I felt alone. I have an exercise called walking meditation. And, you know, you just go very slowly, heel to toe, and you experience what it feels like in your body and how your balance shifts. And, you know, I do this twice a year, and in prior exercises, you know, I did it just so I could try to be like the other kids, but, you know, all I was doing was, you know, steering my wheelchair and trying to make sure I didn't run over the person in front of me. This year, I did it differently. And I sat in the room we were meditating in, and I just sat there with my eyes closed. Well, I had a very powerful experience when my eyes were closed. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I didn't know if people were looking at me. It was like the old days, right after my accident, and I was afraid to open my eyes because I didn't want to look at people. And it was a terrible feeling. I felt not just different, but very much alone. And I felt ashamed and embarrassed. It was a very painful feeling, and it had nothing to do with all those people walking past me. It all had to do with me and what painful emotions got elicited in me. And, because we practice mindfulness and, my mind gets in the habit of experiencing my life moment by moment, my experience changed 5 minutes later when I felt part of everyone. And those emotions kind of float in and out, and feeling alone and different is painful. Feeling shame about it is agony. It's agony. And what I learned, when I don't have to be reactive and blame others or get engaged in self-pity, is I simply felt that painful emotion. I simply felt it. I didn't tell stories about it. Frankly, I thought it was interesting what was happening to me because I hadn't felt it a few minutes earlier. So I just felt it. And sure enough, it passed like clouds in the sky. So that was my impetus. That's where the title came from, and that's where I thought up the title. We've all experienced it. And we've all experienced the pain and the relief when we're alone. Two sets of emotions. Sometimes we feel great relief. I love being alone. Sometimes it's painful. So I thought we could talk about that and see what we can do about it. Rob, I loved the story you told me earlier about your guy. Tell us what happened.
My son Tim, who is 9, we're going through the whole YMCA chain of fish. I'm saying fish because it's all named after fish. He's a guppy, and so he's taking all the swimming courses, and he's working his way up the chain from the minnows to the pollywogs and so he's a guppy. And we just before Christmas, he finished up, and they give you a little certificate, and they tell you whether you're moving on to the next one or not. And we've been through a couple levels, and he's moved right through them. The guppy level, not so much. And they on his certificate it said, suggest that he repeat guppy. And I told him that while we were still at the pool, and he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, we have to. It says here you should repeat guppy. So after Christmas, we'll come back and we'll do guppy again. He's like, no, I don't want to fail. I don't want to repeat a grade. And that's how he was looking at it, as if he was being flunked. And I did not have the words. I tried everything I thought I had in my smart little tool belt to help him out get through that. And finally, out of frustration, I walked over to one of the instructors and said, my son's a little concerned about repeating. And she came up with the perfect thing right out of her mouth was, well, almost everybody has to repeat guppy. It's really no big deal. And she kept talking, but that's all he needed to hear. It was like, oh, okay. And several times since then, he said to me, yeah, we're guppies, and a lot of people repeat guppies. That's really no big deal. It was wonderful.
So my follow-up to that is that's the same thing. I mean, he wasn't afraid of repeating or being a guppy. I mean, he could enjoy his guppydom. But what he was really afraid of was being different than the other kids. And, once he learned that he wasn't going to be different than the other kids, he was fine. That's our great fear, is being different. So we've got some people on the line. I think I should say that we got a chat from our friend Sharmi in India, who says that she can't call in because she's in India. She says, Happy New Year 2014 to everybody out there. And she's a strong proponent of yoga and meditation. So thank you for that, Charmy. Do we have any calls yet?
Yeah, we do have. I can tell there's a couple people on the line. So let me just explain. Let's explain something real quick. So the lines are open, so everybody can talk. So if everybody talks at once, we'll have to figure out how to find the right person. When you're not, so the mute is in your hands. Everybody who's on the phone, it's in your hands. So if you hit 6-3, you'll mute your line. And so when you're not talking, when we're not part of the conversation, would you mind hitting 6-3 so we don't hear your dog barking or anything in the background? And then to unmute, it's 6-6. So if you want to talk, just unmute and go 6-6. So let's see, is anybody on the line? Anybody unmuted? Speak right up. I know I heard some people.
Yeah, I also want to say that please feel free to enter whatever you like on this chat, and I'm happy to read it and respond verbally. And I'd love you all to think about those questions that I asked. What is your experience with being different, lonely, or alone? Are they all the same to you? Are they all painful? And why did you join this web chat today? What is it you're looking for? And I want to say this for this web chat and all of them. So you owe it to yourself to make sure that you're getting what you're looking for today, or at least attempting to. So, call in or chat with us. We've got Margaret. I'm going to read it out loud, Margaret. I didn't expect my daughter's life to turn upside down when I had my spinal stroke November 2012, a little more than 1 year ago. But unless she gets a call from me that I'm not feeling well, as an example, I seldom hear from her. She's in the neighborhood periodically, but I would like her to call me periodically and say, "Hi, how are you doing?" I have told her this, but it went in one ear and out the other. I am lonely, and I really miss her. She's 5 miles from here. Oh boy, Margaret, if you're on the line, I would love to chat with you about this, because I've got a lot of questions before I have answers. For example, I'd want to know if you had these problems in your relationship before this accident happened. So these things rarely improve relationships. But the question I have, and I'd like to turn it into a question, hopefully, that you have, is instead of telling her what you want or what you need, be curious and approach her, and I've talked about this before, with a curious mind and an open heart. So what is going on in her life, and how does she feel, really, about what happened to you? What's it like for her? Is she uncomfortable coming over? Does she feel you're being too demanding, or too needy, or too sick, or too fragile? Maybe she's angry at you for changing her life in this way. Maybe she feels abandoned by what happened to you. Not that it's your fault, but it did change her life. So that's first, is how to reach out to her with curiosity. But, when you say you are lonely, I wonder if there's other emotions in there. Lonely, hurt, angry, heartbroken, maybe embarrassed or regret. There's a lot of emotions we parents feel when we feel abandoned by our adult children. And I would strongly encourage you not to look to her to help you with your broken heart here. Maybe she has limitation, but if you do look to her, she's unreliable. And she's indicated in all sorts of ways she can't take care of you. She doesn't have the wherewithal. But I'll tell you this, Margaret, you can. You can. You know, I've quoted or talked a lot about Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F, who's the foremost researcher in the country on self-compassion. And she's written some wonderful books and has a great website. But it's about self-compassion. Most people are nicer to others than they are to themselves. You know, I did an exercise, Margaret, with somebody. Margaret says she's on the phone now. How does she chat with me?
Well, try just speaking up, Margaret. Let's see if you're unmuted.
Okay,
And
I'm here.
There you are. Great. Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Aha. So I've been blathering here for the last 5 minutes.
Well, I didn't know how to work this phone thing, so because I've been using my headset.
Don't ask me to repeat my blathering.
No, I actually heard it all.
Good. So what's your reaction?
Well, I think actually before my stroke, we didn't have all of that really, really close, friendship. She loves me, I love her, and after the stroke happened, she was at the hospital every day and so on. But then after I got home, I guess she kind of figured that my home health aides that, get me up in the morning and get me to bed at night, that they were pretty much taking care of me and that there was not really much need for her to be around. She is married and has 3 children, 20 years old down to 8. But, it's just that I would appreciate a phone call, sometimes just, how are you doing?
Margaret, what
Yeah.
do you really want? Really? In your heart?
Well, I'd love for her to spend some time with me because I really just miss her being around.
Has she ever done that with you?
She will take a day off of work periodically, once every 6 months or something, maybe to take me to the doctor, and then she'll spend the afternoon with me or something like that. But we've never spent, time either going to a movie, which is hard for me to do now, or just doing things, either chatting or something like that.
What do you miss about her?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if you could tell me, I could understand this more.
I could tell you what you miss?
Yes.
Anne, you want me to
I
read
just
your
miss-
mind? My hands are full with mine.
Yeah. I just miss her closeness and the ability maybe just to talk to her.
Have you ever had that kind of closeness with her?
We have our moments a
Of
couple of
close.
times a year when we can actually talk and open up.
Okay. Does she know they're meaningful to you?
I've told her that they are in the past.
Does she know about your internal life?
I think she does. I had my reevaluation at Craig Hospital in August, spoke with the therapist there, and she encouraged me at the time to express my feelings to my daughter when I got home, which I did. And my daughter said, oh, I didn't realize that. I'm so glad you told me. And then that's been it.
Yeah, I get that. No, when I say your internal life, not about her, but about you. What's it like to be Margaret with this spinal stroke? What's it like to be you?
Oh, you don't want to open this can of worms. I don't. It's entirely different because this happened when I was, I think, 71, and I'm now 72. And I had been very independent before. Now I'm not. I used to go out. Well, I was working 40 hours a week, and now I'm not doing anything basically. So it's changed my life.
And what's it like on the inside, Margaret? Are you
It's
lonely?
hollow. It's
Lonely?
hollow. Yes, I am lonely.
Okay. And you feel empty inside?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
Okay. And you're aching for your daughter to connect with you and fill some of the emptiness.
Well, I am, but they did tell me at the hospital, too, that obviously I'm going to have to look somewhere else other than my daughter to help me with that emptiness, because I think it's apparent that she's not going to step up to the plate.
Well, let me...
even after I talk to her.
Yeah, let me switch roles, because if I was your daughter, which is kind of a reach because I'm your age and a guy, but I would feel burdened. I would feel exhausted. I would feel like there's nothing else I can do. I would feel burdened by your stroke. And I might even feel burdened by your requests, burdened by your depression's not quite the right word, but by your sadness.
But I've not expressed this to her.
But I could never tell you those things because I can't. I don't have words, and I wouldn't want to hurt you that way. So I just won't say anything, and I'll come periodically when I have the energy or when you need me.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, she doesn't even tell me that.
And did you hear the last part of what I said?
Yes.
The last part of what I said is maybe I don't have the language. Maybe I'm not even conscious of those feelings.
Right.
And maybe I don't want to say them because I don't want to hurt you more. And of course I know that, her absence hurts you. But maybe she's between a rock and a hard place. It's like I said in the beginning. Approach her with a curious mind and an open heart.
Right.
Ask her, what is all this like for you? Ask her the same question I asked you, and maybe she'll give you the same answer you gave me initially. You don't want to open this can of worms. She might say exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
She might follow up with the same first sentence. Everything's completely different now. And then you have a discussion. But if you can approach her with curiosity, and not expectations, but curiosity, and then just be quiet for a while and listen for as long as you can handle listening.
Okay.
She might open up to you.
Okay.
As long as there's room. Because what's happening now is there's a push-pull. I need you to do this, and she says through her behavior, I can't do this, but I need you to do it, but I can't do it. And both of you, I mean, she can't be happy with it any more than you. There's not a lot of listening.
Well, I never ask her to do anything. That's just it, because I'm almost afraid to. So I will think of another way to have that done, even if I have to ask a neighbor. I mean, I very rarely ask her for anything at all.
That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm saying just approach her with curiosity. You don't know what it's like to be her these days.
Well, you're right.
Be interested in that. Be curious about that.
Okay.
Just ask that question. What's it like in there? Tell me about what your life is like, how difficult this must be for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I won't ask you to come over. You come over when you want. Come over when you're able to, or when you'd like to see me.
Okay. So I'll definitely do that.
So you got to do me a favor. So you got to log into either our discussion, or email me, or join us for our next web chat, because I'd love to hear. I'd love to follow up and hear how that discussion goes for you.
I'll definitely do that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, Margaret.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Hello?
Yeah,
that
Lori.
talking?
Is that Lori?
This is Nat in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was listening to the conversation with Margaret. Hi, Margaret. I'm out here. You're out there. For myself, when I became disabled 29 years ago, people didn't know what to say or to do. They didn't know what to say or to do. I didn't know what to say or to do. And one of the most common refrains that started happening after a while when, you know, my disability wasn't going away was they would say, well, when are you going to get better? When are you going to, you know, when are we going to do what we used to do? And it was like me saying, well, this is who I am now. And I'm someone new. And in a way, I had to learn to say that and say, well, maybe we need to get to know each other in a different way. What ended up happening was I lost a lot of my old friends because it scared them, because therefore, but the grace of whoever, go I, was how I think a lot of them were feeling, that this could, oh my God, this could happen to me, and that was just too scary for them. So sometimes you lose old friends, but you make new ones. And it's not easy to make new ones when it's hard to get out, or there are lots of people who are afraid of you because you're different, and they're thinking that, well, gee, that could be me. And you know, one of the things that's helped me make new friends, and I know that not everybody can get this, but I have had a service dog as my companion, and that helps be a tremendous bridge to meeting new people, because they see the dog first and love the dog, and then they see me. And it outs me in a way, but it also acts as a bridge. So I think my message mainly was how people get scared and they don't know what to do, or they don't know what to say. When people say, oh, well, what happened to you? And I say, you know, well, I was in a car accident. And they go, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I don't want to hear them tell me that they're sorry. You know, they just want to know what happened. It's like, okay, that's what happened, but let's go on to, so what are you doing today?
Right.
So I just wanted to make that comment about some of what my experience had been. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling in. Thanks for your insight and wisdom. Yeah, and that was my experience too. I mean, I've been in a wheelchair about that long, and people do have anxiety about it. You know, we're hardwired. It's in our primordial brain to have anxiety about anybody or anything that looks different. I mean, it's part of our brain from when we were in caves or before. You know, when we saw something that was different back then, you know, we didn't know if that was going to be lunch or we were going to be their lunch. So, or careful. There's a human in a wheelchair, and they are different. I mean, that's the roots of prejudice and discrimination, is that we're reactive when we see difference. It's
People
understandable.
get scared.
Yeah.
People get scared.
It's understandable, and I say, and a lot of my kindred spirits in chairs don't like this, but I believe that it's our responsibility now to be teachers. Like it or not, for the rest of our lives, we're teachers.
I see myself sometimes as kind of having been given, whether I wanted it or not, being given a bit of a role of being an ambassador.
Right. And you are, no matter what you do.
Yes.
You know, you get angry, you're an ambassador. That's what you're teaching. You know, you're open. You know, one of my favorite things, I enjoyed it so much. I love when kids come up to me, you know, say, why aren't you walking, and how's this work? And, you know, girls, of course, want to know, you know, how I am and can I feel this? And boys want to know how the wheelchair works. But I love it when they approach me like that. You know, they're the ones that are curious. They're the ones that are open and honest, and they don't have the resources, the learning yet to discriminate. And I love it, and it helps their parents too. And I love it so much that, you know, now I go into elementary schools and I read, I go into middle schools and high schools, and I talk about what it's like to be different. The good news and the bad news. What it's like. So, yeah, we're teachers, like it or not. So I appreciate your calling in.
Thank you.
Take care. I want to read Charmi's letter now. Charmi said, this is Charmi from India. I got to make sure I have it. She said, I'm lonely too. What could I do? My husband filed divorce against me following my accident in 2005. I lost my only child's custody too. My siblings are staying outside of India. My mom expired 4 years ago at age 65. My dad broke down completely. I was compelled to shift him to my siblings. Since then, January 2011, I'm staying all alone by myself. I'm a paraplegic, T6. So my arms, hands, and fingers were spared. So I'm managing the life, I mean the daily activities, and the money that I earn at my place of work has helped me to survive. But frankly speaking, loneliness does kill, truly. I just keep myself engaged in various activities. And then, still then, so, yeah, you're talking about the pain of being alone. And Charmi, you're making an assumption here that I want to challenge. And what I read into the end, where you say, after the various activities, then still alone, as though loneliness and being alone is the fact of your life, and being out and engaged with people is a distraction. Well, what about flipping that around? What about being out and engaged with people is truly the substance of your life. And loneliness occurs periodically when you're home and alone. Because if you look at this pain carefully of loneliness, if you look at it carefully, you'll see that you're not feeling it every minute of the time you're home alone. You might even be feeling some pleasure during the time you're home alone. And you might find, if you can look at it carefully, look at your emotions, and you're a meditator, if you can look at your emotions moment by moment, just take an hour and sit there and watch your emotions, you might notice that this phenomenon of loneliness only occurs a percentage of the time when you're home alone. But because it hurts so much, the story you tell yourself about it is a phenomenon. You know, that is who you are, a lonely person. That's who you are when you are feeling lonely. But that's not who you are. And then she said, I miss company. I miss family. I miss togetherness. And that's what it is. That's the truth. It's an ache. It's an ache for something that's not there. You know, it's the pain you're feeling. I liken it to phantom pain, where someone has an amputation and it still hurts where that limb used to be. It still hurts where your family used to be, where your siblings used to be, where maybe your friends used to be. You still feel that pain. Sounds like you're in grief as much as lonely. You're in grief. You've had so many deaths in your life, so many losses, in a relatively short period of time, 8 years. You've had so many losses, and you've had grief on top of grief. You haven't had time to process them before another one happened. Please let yourself cry. Please find a way to say a loving goodbye to what you had yesterday. And cry for as long as you like, as long as you want, and as long as you need. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote. And this is my first venture into poetry, so be gentle with me, everybody. But it addresses this issue. It's called Broken Lives and Open Hearts. When life comes at you, bare-knuckled and bloodthirsty, and you find yourself lying naked and beaten in an unfamiliar land, and you feel the world is watching you, broken and vulnerable, so you hide your anguish, too scared to cry, because if you do, it might never stop. And everything you thought was true, now gone. So without a roadmap, you get up, frightened and fragile, and you take your first tentative step into the unknown. You go to doctors to heal your body, but the scars are permanent. And you see other doctors to heal your broken heart, but those scars are permanent too. And after the shock and the anger and the self-pity and the resentment, when you're too exhausted to fight against the truth of your life, you finally sigh and you cry oceans of tears. You cry for all you've lost. You cry for this good person who suffers. And then you cry for all who suffer. And so it begins. I got to click. It's different than before. You find yourself not as strong physically, not even strong enough to hide your vulnerability. And then you notice the air itself smells sweeter. The sun is brighter. Your love is less tentative and more generous. And you begin loving more people, and then all living things. And loving seems easier and more abundant than ever before. And you close your eyes, and you hold your life, and you realize that all of this love comes through the scar tissue in your broken heart. Charmy, oceans of tears are in there. Loss after loss after loss. And then you open your eyes. You know, the Sufi, famous Sufi, said, when the heart weeps for what it's lost, the soul rejoices for what it's found. And then Charmy just said, thank you, dear Dan. And I'll say back to you, bless your heart, dear Charmy. Bless your heart. My friend Charmy's been here on almost every web chat from India. I know it's not easy. Is anybody else on the line? What do we hit, Rob?
Yeah, to unmute, you would hit 6 to unmute. And you do have another question in your chat there, Dan.
All right.
Do that.
Where are we? Karen Zimmer.
Yes.
My 16-year-old son has been in a wheelchair for 6 years. He has retreated emotionally and has no friends outside of school. He says he's fine, but I know he's not. He used to be gregarious and outgoing. Suggestions for helping him get past thinking that the wheelchair is what identifies him.
And Karen, are you on the line?
I am. Hi.
Oh, great. Great, because that's tough to do in just a chat. Thanks for
Right.
Thanks for calling in, Karen.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, me too. Let's see what we both can learn. Okay? Has your son gotten worse over the last couple of years?
You mean emotionally or physically or both?
Emotionally.
Yes. I don't think we're dealing with clinical depression. I actually had him at a counselor probably when he was 13, and the counselor even at that point said, wow, he's a tough one, even for me, to draw him out. So he suggested maybe we revisit counseling in a couple of years. So now I would like to revisit. I just need to make sure I find the right psychologist.
Yeah, you sure do have to find the right one. Where do you live, Karen?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Where do you live?
Santa Maria, California.
Where's that? What's it near?
That is an hour north of Santa Barbara.
Between Santa Barbara and L.A.?
No, north.
Santa Barbara?
Yeah, an hour north of Santa Barbara.
All right.
I don't know if you know San Luis Obispo, Pismo Beach.
Here's who you have to look for. The dream therapist is going to do mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy, MBCT, MBCBT, sorry.
BPT?
That's the dream. mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy. Now here's what happened. There's a wonderful book about it that I encourage you to get and read, and don't ask your son to read it. But
okay.
I can't remember all the authors, but it's mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for anxiety and depression. And one of the authors is Zindel, Z-I-N-D-E-L, Siegel, from Canada. I only remember his name because it's a weird name.
Yeah, it is.
So here's what happens. I am uncomfortable. First of all, this started when he was 13. This is around
well,
puberty.
he's actually been in the wheelchair since he was 10.
No, I mean his depression.
Oh, no, probably even before that. Probably about a year after being in the wheelchair when he realized this was, permanent.
Well, that's pretty typical. I mean, that's
Sure.
depression I went through, and I think most, the clinical depression. This depression is related to another thing in addition. It's related to the fact that brains change again between roughly 17 and 25. There's radical changes in brains.
Sure.
But the other thing is, at this stage of life, more than any other, the high school years. I hope that's not your son.
No.
The high school years, more than ever, you want to be like everybody else.
Right.
You've got your hormones working, you want to date, you want to see what it means to be a sexual young man. Not talking about intercourse,
No, I understand.
You want to be with a woman, and this is when you get frustrated, angry, and terribly, terribly ashamed to be who you are.
Right.
So my guess is he fakes it all day.
Yes.
And he comes home and, the depression that he's been keeping at arm's length comes out. I don't like him seeing a therapist that's going to try to draw him out. Those 3 words are troubling.
Okay.
He's lost a lot. So let him hold on to whatever he wants to hold on to. If he wants to hold on to his emotions for now, let him. That somebody.
The thing is, he has no emotions. He's flatline.
All right. So Rob's doing his homework here. As I mentioned books and people. He puts them right up. He puts a link up on there in the chat. I'm not so sure he's got no emotions. They just don't come out.
Oh, no, I know. No, I know that. He's just not displaying them, let's say.
Yeah, just contained.
Right.
And, it's like I said in my poem, you almost can't open them up for fear that, it'll never close up again.
Right.
It's, we heard from, I think it was Margaret who referred to her emotions as a can of worms. That's the way it feels. You open it, you'll never get the worms back in. So a cognitive approach, first of all, somebody who is a good therapist who's going to specialize in teenagers and is going to, the goal is not going to be to change anything yet. The goal is just going to be to sit together. Just sit together, not talk about the problems. But, talk about what he loves, what he hates, and what it's like to be him. And, the therapist will talk about what it's like to be them. And it's a mindfulness base. So he might stop your son and say, well, what's it like right now? What are you feeling now? Maybe give a little help.
What if Austin doesn't talk back? That was kind of the problem when he was 13. The counselor said it's difficult to counsel when the participant doesn't speak.
Well, if he was there voluntarily, and he was
kind of. I mean, for the most part, not. He didn't want to be there as a 13-year-old boy.
If he was there semi-voluntarily,
Definitely.
All right, he's not. If he's not fighting you, that
right.
says something. And if he's seeing a really skilled therapist who knows about adolescence, you won't have to talk.
And that was, I think, the problem. I don't think I had the right guy.
Yeah. Won't have to.
I mean, he was good and everything, but I don't think he was specifically trained for this situation. My question to you, Doctor, also is, if I do find the right psychologist and Austin does not want to go, let's say he's fighting me this time, where's that breaking point of, I don't want to force?
No. That I can't answer. You'll have to have a meeting, the three of you. You know, you, Austin, and the psychologist.
Because I don't want to push him deeper away, further away,
I want to...
if I force him.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other hand, you know, if it is helping, you've got to talk to the therapist about this, and you've got to talk to him. He's 16, so he's got to feel a little empowered here about why he doesn't want to go back, and if it's not helping, why, and is there anything the therapist is doing wrong? Does the therapist need to change something they're doing? You know, my God, we therapists, most of us, love feedback like that.
Sure.
So that's my 2 cents.
So I guess I'll go and get that book that you recommended, and then I don't know if you would have any. I don't know how to find the right therapist. Our area is really not abundant with a lot of them.
There is a cognitive. Well, get this book, and you might find. I'm sure you'll find links there.
Okay.
You know, there's national organizations, and you could put in your, your zip code.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you for your input, and the title is what really drew me in, because I know Austin is feeling different and alone and lonely, but he just won't break open, you know, as far as, because the person who is feeling different, alone, or lonely needs to make some steps to change that.
Yeah.
And it's not, it takes two to tango, you know.
Oh, wait a minute there. It does take two to tango. How are you feeling?
Frustrated.
Any other emotions?
Gosh, that's the main one, is frustration. Because I'm frustrated with the fact that he's letting the wheelchair identify who he is.
Can I just give you a multiple choice question?
Yes.
All right. Frustrated, scared, alone,
No.
helpless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not scared. I mean, I'm excited for his future. As far as I could see him going away to college and hiring a caregiver, and he's a bright young man. And so I can see a great future for him. I just think he's not...
Let me suggest this, because we've got to go in just a minute.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'd love to see the two of you have a conversation. and, ask him, how can you help him? And I want you to know in this conversation. Be ready to say how he can help you. Because you feel helpless. And it's a terrible feeling. Just ask him, please, to help you. This is not a trumped-up request. This is not a phony request. This is a painful emotion you carry, and he can help you with that. As a matter of fact, he's the only one that can help you.
I like that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Take care of you. Good luck. Keep us posted, please.
Thank you. Now, how often do you have these live chats?
Monthly.
Okay, so
normally on the first Wednesday of each month. Now, there's exceptions now and then, but you'll be, since you signed up for this one, you'll be on the mailing list, so you'll get notifications.
Great. All right, well, thank you all.
Check in on the web page. There's always active discussions going on in there.
Okay, I did see that today. First time I've come upon it, so great. I'm excited to see what else is there.
Good. All right.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Well, fearless.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time. So, in conclusion, I'll say the same thing Rob said in the beginning. The callers make this to be great, and without the callers we couldn't do it. And I'm so grateful for the lively discussions and for the courage it takes to make the calls. And it's my most fervent wish that these web chats and these discussions are helpful to you. So really look forward to seeing you next month. And by the way, I got a new book coming out in early March. You're going to hear more shameless publicity, but the book's called The Wisdom We're Born With: Awakening Faith, Reawakening Faith in Ourselves. So it's coming out in March. We're going to be talking about it more. All right, Rob.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll just throw in christopherreeve.org/Dr. Dan will take you to the spot in our community where you can leave questions for Dan or keep this conversation going.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.